They sell diamonds as if they were promises, hard and unbreakable. But that's just another velvet lie told by men who need commissions and women who need illusions. A diamond is a rock that learned how to reflect light. Ink is something else entirely. Ink is a scar. Ink is a receipt for a transaction already completed. You can wash blood off marble, polish guilt out of a confession, but ink remembers. It stains the paper the way a bad decision stains a life. Permanence isn't something you buy, it's something that buys you. I learned that watching a man I called the provider sign his own quiet execution with every wire transfer. He lived at the top of the city, where the air thins out and so does reality. A penthouse of glass and imported stone, hanging over the streets like a god's indifferent eye. Everything in that apartment had been selected to suggest eternity. Hardwood floors milled from dead forests, leather stitched by hands that would never touch him, art that cost more than most people's houses. It was a museum of success, and he was both the curator and the lone exhibit. He paid for all of it, the square footage, the view, the silence, and her. She was the dolphin, sleek, beautiful, and always smiling as if she'd just surfaced from a private ocean no one else could see. Her laughter came in soft melodic clicks, charming and empty, like sonar searching for the next rich reef to circle. She moved through that penthouse as if she'd been poured into it, every curve of her body echoing the architecture of the place. Smooth lines, polished surfaces, no visible seams. She wore his money like a second skin, jewelry, dresses, perfumes that smelled like someone else's fantasy. And he wore her like proof of purchase. They looked perfect together in photographs. He, tall and solid, a man built from discipline and deferred gratification. She, radiant and fluid, all impulse and appetite. The city loved them. Restaurants knew their names. Valets memorized the curve of her smile. Everyone assumed it was love. Everyone always does when the lighting is right and the bills are paid. But love is an investment. This was a lease. The penthouse itself told the real story. Every wall was straight, every angle precise. A fortress of minimalism designed to leave no place for clutter or secrets. Except there is always one place where secrets breed: the cloud. Digital ghosts don't haunt rooms, they haunt servers. The provider was a careful man. He tracked his assets. He audited his life the way other men check their blood pressure. Every account was synced, every device mirrored. It wasn't jealousy, it was accounting. When you're responsible for everything, you need to know where everything is, including her. That night, the city was a sheet of black glass outside the windows, pricked with the gold of distant traffic. The dolphin had gone out, some charity gala or boutique opening, one of those expensive excuses to drink and be seen. He didn't mind. Her absence was another kind of silence he had learned to enjoy. He sat alone on the couch, the blue light of his tablet washing over his face like the glow of an operating table. He had meant to review some contracts. That was the lie he told himself. In truth, he was scrolling through the quiet machinery of their shared cloud, a cathedral of data humming with their digital lives. Photos, messages, backups, receipts. He didn't go looking for her sins. They rose up to meet him. A folder he didn't recognize, no dramatic name, just a string of numbers, like a bank account. Inside, images loaded one by one, her body uncurated, her smile no longer for him, hotel mirrors, anonymous ceilings, a man's hand on her hip that wasn't his. There was no sound in the room, except the soft electronic breath of the tablet. He didn't gasp, he didn't clench his fists. Men who build empires don't react to storms, they measure the damage. Each swipe was another line item in a balance sheet of betrayal. Videos, messages, laughter caught in pixels. Her voice, warm and intimate, speaking to someone else as if he were just another unpaid invoice. This was the ink, not the lipstick on a collar, not the perfume in a stranger's car. This was permanent, uploaded, backed up, stamped with time and date like a notarized confession. Every file a signature at the bottom of a contract he never agreed to. The provider sat there bathed in blue light, looking at the architecture of his own ruin. The penthouse around him was still flawless, the city still glittered. The dolphin would still come home later, smiling, smelling like lies and champagne. But something fundamental had shifted. A load-bearing wall had cracked, and when a building begins to fail, it does so in silence, long before it collapses. Something died in him that night, but it didn't die loudly. It didn't scream or bleed out on the floor. It went quiet, the way a generator shuts down when the fuel is cut. The man who had loved her, the provider, the careful god of that glass cathedral, simply powered off. In the hollow space he left behind, something else booted up. I call it the architect. The architect does not feel, he measures. He does not rage, he drafts. Betrayal to him was not a wound. It was a structural flaw in a building he had paid too much for. And structural flaws don't get argued with. They get corrected. He never confronted the dolphin. That would have been emotional. That would have been messy. Instead, he decided to do something far more precise. He decided to brand her. For the next 7 days, he became the best version of himself. Not because he wanted to be, but because the trap required comfort. A frightened animal won't step into a snare. You have to feed it first, stroke it, let it forget the forest is full of teeth. He bought flowers without being asked. He laughed at her stories. He listened to her empty little dramas about people he'd never meet. He made reservations at places with waiting lists measured in months. When she came home smelling of other people's lives, he kissed her like a man grateful for oxygen. The dolphin noticed, of course. They always do when the money gets warmer. She glowed under the attention, mistaking the tightening of the net for affection. Her eyes shone. Her laughter got louder. She began to talk about the future again, their future, because people like her believe tomorrow is just another thing that can be bought. On the 7th night, he took her to a restaurant, suspended halfway up a skyscraper, a place where the windows curved outward, so the whole city looked like it was bending to listen. Candles flickered on white linen, the kind of place where even secrets speak in whispers. He waited until the second glass of wine softened her edges. "I was thinking about us," he said, voice calm, steady, engineered. "About how temporary everything feels. Weddings, rings, they're all just theater. I want something real, something permanent." Her eyes widened, already counting zeros. "What do you mean, baby?" "Tattoos," he said. The word dropped between them like a coin in a wishing well. "Matching ones. Something we'll carry forever, even when we're old and ugly," he smiled. "A mark that says we belong to each other." Belong. That word has weight. It has chains hidden inside it. The dolphin loved the idea. Of course she did. A tattoo was just another accessory to her. A little pain for a lot of attention. "That's so romantic," she breathed. "What would we get?" He had already designed it. The architect always arrives with blueprints in hand. "A dolphin," he said, gently, "to remember that trip we took to the Pacific coast. Remember, when we swam with them at sunrise? You said it was the happiest day of your life." It was a lie. A beautiful, useless lie. They had never been to the Pacific together. But she smiled anyway, nodding, her memory as flexible as her morals. "Yes," she said, "of course, I remember." And our names, intertwined beneath it. So no matter what happens, we're always written together. Written. Ink remembers. Inside, the architect was already carving her skin with invisible lines. He saw her not as a woman but as property, a high-end asset that had depreciated in secret. You don't yell at a broken machine. You tag it. You mark it so the next man knows it's been owned. She leaned across the table, eyes full of champagne and dreams. When? Tomorrow, he said. Rain is supposed to come. Feels right, like a baptism. The storm arrived on schedule. Friday evening, the sky was a sheet of wet concrete, heavy and oppressive. Rain slid down the windows of the taxi like tears the city was too proud to cry. The tattoo parlor glowed at the end of the block, a small neon-lit chapel to pain and permanence. The dolphin squeezed his hand, excited, nervous, happy. The architect squeezed back, already feeling the brand heat up in his mind. Some people think love is about trust. They've never seen a man prepare a ledger. The tattoo studio smelled like antiseptic and old regrets. A sterile, chemical sharpness hung in the air, layered over the faint metallic note of blood and the sweet rot of disinfectant trying to pretend it was clean. Neon signs hummed behind fogged glass, flickering like tired veins. The walls were covered in flash art, skulls, roses, angels, demons. Every human fantasy reduced to something that could be stabbed into skin and sold by the hour. Somewhere in the back, a machine started up. The needle buzzed with a thin, angry whine, the sound of a mechanical insect preparing to feed. The dolphin sat in the chair, sleeves rolled up, skin pale under the harsh white lights. She looked small there, stripped of her penthouse armor. No silk, no diamonds, just a woman about to be written on. The artist cleaned her forearm with cold alcohol. She flinched, then laughed it off, glancing back at the provider for reassurance. He nodded. The architect was already gone. The stencil went on first, a simple, elegant dolphin leaping in an arc, and beneath it 2 names entwined like lovers' fingers, his and hers, black lines against fragile skin, a blueprint for something that could never be undone. Ready? The artist asked. Yeah, she said, breath a little too fast. I'm ready. The needle touched down. There is a moment when ink first pierces flesh that feels like fire being taught to write. Her smile tightened, her fingers curled around the armrest. The buzzing filled the room, drowning out everything else. With every pass, the machine drove pigment into the second layer of her skin, below the part that heals, into the part that remembers. The provider watched, silent, as his name was carved into her. This was not passion. This was engraving. Minutes stretched. The dolphin's sleek body took shape. The curves filled in, dark and permanent. When the artist began on the letters, she hissed softly through her teeth. Pain sharpens awareness. It makes things real. Halfway through his name, his phone rang. The sound cut through the buzzing like a blade. I need to take this, he said, already standing. Work. She nodded, distracted by the sting. Don't be long. I won't, he lied, and stepped outside into the rain. Outside, the city was a blur of wet asphalt and broken reflections. Water soaked his coat. It didn't matter. He walked away from the neon, from the buzzing, from the woman being branded with a story she didn't understand. He never looked back. Inside, the needle kept moving. The last letters of his name were sealed into her skin. The artist wiped away the blood and excess ink, revealing the final image. A dolphin and 2 names forever locked together in black. All done, he said. You can show him. She reached for her phone. No signal. The studio was a dead zone, thick concrete swallowing reception. She waited. 5 minutes. 10. Her excitement curdled into something colder. He went outside, the artist said.
Maybe he's still on the call. She stood, wrapping her arm in plastic, and walked to the door. The rain met her like a wall. The street was empty. The realization came not as panic, but as a hollowing, a vacuum opening in her chest where certainty had lived. She called him again and again, straight to voicemail. The city answered instead, with traffic and rain and nothing else. By the time she reached the penthouse, the locks had changed. The concierge, a man who had watched her come and go for years, slid an envelope across the marble desk without meeting her eyes. He asked me to give you this. Inside were printouts, photos, messages, hotel receipts, the architecture of her betrayal laid out in black and white. Every secret she had ever uploaded now returned to her as a ledger, and a bus ticket, one way, cheap, anonymous, a digital sin paid back in paper. Her reflection in the lobby mirror looked wrong, stripped, reduced. She lifted her arm and peeled back the plastic. There it was, the dolphin, and his name. Perfect, permanent, a mark she could never sell, never pawn, never explain away. A signature burned into her skin, declaring ownership long after the owner had vanished. She had wanted a life paid for by someone else's ink. Now she had it. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet line of black beneath the skin, whispering a name every time you look down. The vault is closed.